Your property master is McBride Realty Group in 5 minutes of free time. Today we want to continue on with the sales contract. Again, we're using the as-is residential contract for sale and purchase issued by the Florida Association of Realtors and approved by the Florida Bar. We left off where we left off. We left off at financing, and I'm going to continue on with the financing section. Basically, at this point, you've submitted your offer. It's contingent on financing, and we've determined what those contingencies are. Now, it is contingent on financing. However, the buyer's failure to use diligent effort to attain a loan approval during the loan approval period shall be considered a default under the terms of the contract. So for the purpose of this provision, diligent effort includes, but is not limited to, timely furnishing of all documents and information, paying all the fees requested by the buyer's mortgage broker and lender in connection with their mortgage loan application. So you have the obligation as the buyer to pursue your loan using diligent effort, which most buyers are going to do because they really want to buy the place anyway. Section 8.2 says the buyer shall keep seller and broker fully informed about the status of buyer's mortgage loan application, loan approval, loan processing, and authorizes the buyer's mortgage broker, lender, and closing agent to disclose such status and progress and release preliminary and finally executed closing disclosures and settlement statements. So basically the buyer is allowing the seller, the listing agent, to contact their lender directly and authorizes them to share information with them. Upon the buyer obtaining loan approval, the buyer shall promptly deliver written notice. So as soon as you have loan approval. So what is loan approval? You have pre-approval typically when you submit your offer, saying, hey, if all this stuff you told me is true, if you really make this much money, if your credit score is good, and if we don't find anything that negates us giving you a loan, then we're going to go ahead and approve it. That's pre-approval. But once you submit your loan application, they can come back with full approval. And once you have full approval, then you shall promptly deliver that notice to the seller. This used to be called something else, but now they've changed it to loan approval. Section 3. Upon the buyer obtaining loan approval, the buyer shall promptly deliver. Oh, I just left them. Section 4. If the buyer is unable to obtain loan approval after the exercise of diligent effort, then at any time prior to the loan approval period, the buyer may provide written notice to the seller stating they've been unable to obtain the loan. So remember, that was default was 30 days. You had 30 days to obtain loan approval. But if you don't get loan approval, then you just let them know and you get your money back within that 30-day period. However, you wait. It's been unable to obtain loan approval, and then you have two options in that scenario. Option 1 is you can waive loan approval. So the buyer can say, "Hey, I waive loan approval," and at that point you're putting your money at risk, your deposit at risk. Or you can terminate the contract, like I said before. If you fail to deliver timely notice above to the seller prior to the expiration period, the loan approval shall be deemed waived, in which event the contract will continue as if the loan approval had been obtained. Provided, however, the seller may elect to terminate the contract by delivering written notice within 3 days after the expiration of the loan approval. So what does all that mean? Here's how it means. You're going to submit your loan application using diligent effort. Once you get approved, you're going to let the seller know, hey, we're approved. It's no longer contingent on our financing. If you don't submit that within 30 days, then you can either cancel the contract within that period, or if you get denied, if you get denied, you can cancel the contract within 30 days period, Or you can waive the loan approval, at which time you're putting your escrow deposit at risk. If you don't do anything, it is assumed that you are waiving your right to credit. It's assumed you are waiving your contingency of loan approval. So after 30 days, if you don't tell them that you didn't get approved, it's assumed that you're moving forward with the contract. However, within 3 days of that 30-day period, the seller can cancel the contract. Of course, at any time, both parties can agree to cancel the contract. But if the seller doesn't cancel the contract, then you move forward with the sale. And if you don't get approved, then you're going to lose your deposit. However, the seller will not be able to market their property until the termination of this contract, which would not actually occur until the two of you agreed, or until the time at which the closing date has expired and then the contract itself has expired. So if the seller decides to keep your escrow deposit and you guys don't sign off on it together and agree on that, then the seller can't put his property back on the market until such time as we've either signed off on it or the closing date has passed. So that's how they handle that now. If this contract is timely terminated as provided above and the buyer is not in default, the buyer shall be refunded their deposit from further obligation under this contract. So if you agree or if you do it in time. And Section 7, if the loan approval has been attained or deemed to have been attained and the buyer fails to close, then the deposit paid the seller, unless the deposit paid to the seller is due to the seller's default or inability to satisfy the contingency of the contract, or the property related to conditions of the loan approval have not been fixed, or appraisal of the property, then the buyer shall be, in those conditions, the buyer will get the deposit back, and in the other condition, the seller will get the deposit back. So what that means is, if the seller does not adequately satisfy any contingencies of the original contract, or the conditions of the property haven't been met, for instance, let's say something came back on the FHA appraisal and the seller didn't fix it, or the appraisal of the property obtained by the buyer's lender, it doesn't appraise, then in those scenarios, even if you have your loan approval, the buyer would still get their money back. The only way the buyer's not going to get their money back is if they don't get loan approval and they don't notify the seller within the 30-day period. So that is the most complicated section and most debated section of the contract that has just been updated within the last 2 weeks. If you want to enter into a contract for sale, we can get you top dollar. 386-866-1007. Have a great day.